available. Well, a St. John's family says they've found a therapy which helped their child. Tonight, Marie Wadden brings you their story in this special presentation.
Give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home.
Emily Gow is 2.5 years old. She has cerebral palsy. Her brain is damaged, so she needs extra help to be like other children.
Paddywhack, give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. This old man, he played
5 hours a day, 7 days a week, she is exercised like this.
Paddywhack, give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. This old man.
Her little arms and legs are moved up and down, over and under. 50 volunteers, people like these, come to her house different times during the week. They help to pattern Emily.
He played 10, he played knick-knack on my hand with the knick-knack.
The idea is to stimulate parts of the brain that are healthy. The family says the more Emily is helped like this, the more she will learn and do for herself.
Yes, triangle. Circle. Square.
They say without this help, Emily would hardly ever move on her own. Her muscles would never get strong.
Yes, and chest and ears and chest and ears.
Emily is used to the routine now. She doesn't seem to mind. It's been part of her life since she was a year old. Tirelessly she endures the exercises, the endless push and pull on her tiny limbs.
Emily. T. Okay. Yes. And what is this?
It's made into a game with Emily's mom leading, and Emily plays along, repeating the words and repeating the action. With the help of the volunteers, her strength grows daily. A mask is worn 1 minute of every waking hour. It speeds up her breathing and expands her lungs. She moves through a homemade tunnel which teaches her to crawl properly. After a year and a half of this therapy, Emily's parents feel much better. She has so improved since her first year of life.
She was just very listless and didn't move, and she didn't respond to us very well at the time. And of course, you can really see that difference now, how she interacts with people very well. But at a year old, even, I mean, she's 2 now, but at a year old, she didn't have that kind of response. That was, I think, for me, the most notable part.
There's someone else who's amazed by Emily's progress. Dr. John Ross saw her the day after she was born. It was he who first diagnosed the brain damage.
According to the prognosis that I would have given her, it would not have been good. The sort of hope for much in the way of recovery or much in the way of progress, I wouldn't have put it high.
2 years later, how do you assess her development?
Well, it's not so much 2 years later, really. It's sort of, the prognosis seemed to be holding up the first wee while until she began her program. And since then, there's been a very, very obvious and marked change in the child.
Could you describe that change?
Yes, well, she can communicate. She sees people, she responds, she smiles, she laughs, she is verbalizing somewhat, she is recognizing things, she can move around the house, she's an integral part of the family. She is really becoming a human being that's giving a lot of other people pleasure. This is the most incredible thing about her.
I've seen changes in Emily in the year we've been filming this story. These pictures were taken last February. At that time, Emily needed help as she learned to crawl.
Good. There.
She had a lot of difficulty climbing stairs. Several weeks ago, we took these pictures. Emily can climb the stairs on her own now. She's learning to walk. Her mother feels it won't be long before Emily will be able to walk on her own. But how much of all this was done by the patterning, and how much could she have learned on her own?
We are not just fanatically pumping arms and legs, we're playing with her. It's all games and it's happiness. In the meantime, she gets a lot of attention, she gets a lot of movement, she gets an awful lot of stimulation, she's bombarded with stimulation. Emily's life could be so different because of her immobility. Myself as a mother could never provide this amount of stimulation for her. She cannot go out herself to get the stimulation. So therefore, it has to be brought to her.
I suppose your biggest problem here is that this might have happened anyway, people might say. My experience, I don't think it would have, having seen babies this severely affected previously and knowing what to expect. I would be very surprised for this degree of integration within a family to be possible. It seems to be that this process stimulates the unused part of the brain. I would imagine that this is what it is. Certainly looking at the progress of a child like this, something's happening.
Emily's therapy is controversial. The program was first developed by two Americans, Glenn Doman, a physiotherapist, and Carl Delicato, a school administrator. Their program hasn't been well accepted by the medical establishment, but its popularity is growing among parents who feel there just isn't any other choice. This is certainly how Emily's mother felt 2 years ago.
That was what our first year with her was like. It was waking up every morning and first thinking, oh, it's a nice day, and then suddenly realizing, no, the problem was still with us, and we didn't know what to do. And after a while, it was with me every hour of the day. I went back to work for a few months, and even that was very difficult because I started to think about her at work, and I wasn't effective anymore. I would come home and hoping against better knowing that Emily wouldn't be as bad as she was when I left her in the morning, or that it was all in my head. And the disappointment grew every day.
What was your introduction to Doman Delicato?
A friend of ours handed me a book. I had never heard of it. And she knew of people who had done it very successfully.
Margaret George is the director of the program in Canada. She occasionally visits Newfoundland to assess children and determine if the program can help them. She says her knowledge of Doman Delicato's method is first-hand.
I got interested and was looking for answers through my daughter, who at 11 still didn't complete grade 1. And I felt the things that she did daily indicated to me she certainly wasn't lacking in intelligence. But she just couldn't put it all together. And of course this led me into teaching in the schools for the mentally retarded, which just increased my frustration that a child would say something or do something that you would expect any normal child to do, but you couldn't get that child to grasp that 1 and 1 was 2. And so I was looking for answers, and when I heard Dr. Raymond Fleming of Banff, Alberta, who was the first Canadian doctor to show interest and go down to the center in Philadelphia, he came back and spoke to groups of people interested. And for the first time, I felt I was hearing things that made good sense and would open doors to these type of children.
The program itself, when it came up through the 1960s, drew a lot of controversy.
Wayne Nesbitt is a professor of special education at Memorial University. He's a critic of the program and cautions against its widespread use.
And if the child did need physiotherapy, there is a good measure of physiotherapy involved in this. And obviously for that child, quite likely maybe some of the methods might work, and he might improve in terms of his development. The problem is that Domi and Delicato indiscriminately say that they can treat most children with a wide range of problems rather than specific types of problems. And I think that children who do improve by this method may well improve by any method if given early intervention and a lot of concentrated time, attention, love and devotion, these types of things. I think these would be a very good part of bringing any program into fulfillment. But whether there's anything inherent in the actual Domi and Delicato program where the child is moving, say, from the fish stage to the reptile stage, this type of thing, whether that's actually making a change, I think is quite questionable.
One more.
John Gow, Emily's father, is a scientist. He says it doesn't bother him that the program isn't widely accepted.
I think that being a scientist has made it easy, certainly made it easy to accept the program. Because as a scientist, you realize that everything is open to interpretation. That what we accept today is sometimes outmoded very quickly, and that new ideas are very important. And somebody has to try these new ideas. Most of the revolutionary steps forward that are taken are not very well accepted at their time. So I don't think we found it difficult at all to have people tell us that these ideas wouldn't work.
These people are very vulnerable as patients with incurable illness and serious illness. They're all vulnerable people. They can be led down the garden path hoping for events that would not happen, expectations that will not be fulfilled. And that, I think, is really, it's an attempt to try and protect people from exploitation. What I've seen of the program so far does not even strike me as exploitation in any way, shape or form, and requires a lot of effort on the part of the couple. They needn't think they're going to go into a program like this without some effort on their behalf.
Tonight there's a party for the volunteers at the Gows. It's a thank you from the family. The volunteers' cooperation is what makes the program work. Without them, Emily's parents couldn't cope alone. The volunteers were found from many sources, coordinated by a local volunteer agency. They came to Emily as strangers. Now they're her best friends. Their prodigy Emily is tucked in bed, but she's not far from their minds.
If I didn't see her when she was so bad, I wouldn't believe it now.
What kinds of changes?
But she can sit up alone now, and she can hold on things, and she can talk. And she's a different child altogether.
Do you enjoy working with Emily?
Very much so.
What kind of satisfaction does it give you?
Satisfaction, you're doing something worthwhile and useful.
I've been patterning probably about 10 or 15 times.
Do you think it works?
Yes, I do, because even over that short period of time, I can see how Emily has progressed.
Well, ever since the beginning, she's improved a lot. She's Em, right? She's just, it's hard to explain what good, just like other little kids, except for she has to have this to do it.
The volunteers are critical for the amount of work, but also I can never...
They're critical for the morale, too.
For the morale. I can never be blue.
They're so cheerful and enthusiastic.
They come in the morning and I might be really down. And they're cheerful because they haven't been here for a week and they see the change, whereas I don't see the change because it's too subtle. And they cheer me up and keep me going. Also, having the volunteer system allows me to talk about brain damage. I don't have to sit home and brood about it and worry about it. Whatever is on my mind, I get it off my chest.
It's not easy for a family to put so much of its energy into one child. But the program demands this. Emily has a sister, Frances. She seems to accept well all the attention her little sister gets. Francie helps, understanding that Emily needs that extra care. Would it work as well for other families? This is something hard to define. Who is suited for this commitment? What families could cope?
We found that if a family is sound to begin with, and you sit down to talk about that, it is fairly easy to do. It's never easy, but it can be done. Living with a disabled child and seeing a child go backwards and thinking how much that child is missing out on, it's a constant worry. That is hard. That is very difficult on the family. What we're doing now is much easier for us. As far as the other children or child, again, it takes a lot of thought, but it can be done very well, that she becomes part of the whole program. It's a family thing. It's not just one person doing nothing else, putting all the attention to the one child.
I would hate to see somebody go into this and not, if their expectations are not met, then blame the program or blame anyone who had recommended it to them. And I think that it requires a fair commitment from the parents of the child like this. It really does. It requires quite a commitment on their part to make this program work.
Is it only then a unique couple or a unique family who will be able to...
by no means. No, I think that's the point, that I don't think it is uniqueness, but I think it does require some degree of determination, some degree of commitment to the program. It also requires an essence of parenthood that I think not everybody has. It's parents who are just willing to go that bit extra.
Emily has one more year of patterning to go. Her parents feel by next fall the volunteers won't be needed. They say Emily now has a 300-word vocabulary and may soon be walking. With these skills, she should be able to lead a more normal life. The stimulation won't have to come to her. She'll be able to go out into the world and learn for herself, like other children. Patterning has been around for over 20 years now, and it's still the subject of a lot of controversy. Emily's parents are convinced it helped their brain-damaged child, and they say it's worth a try. Marie Wadden for Here and Now.
Tomorrow night we'll have a follow-up to tonight's program from the Medical Association. We'll have the sports in a moment. Giving her a special therapy for a year and a half now, and they say it's working. But certain doctors don't approve. Marie Wadden has reaction to the program, but first, a brief look at last night's show.
Paddy Rat, give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home.
Emily Gow is 2.5 years old. She has cerebral palsy. Her brain is damaged, so she needs extra help to be like other children.
Paddy Rat, give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. This old man, he played
5 hours a day, 7 days a week. She is exercised like this.
Paddy Rat, give the dog a bone. This old man came rolling home.
That was a segment from a program we showed you last night called Patterning. Patterning is the name of a controversial therapy for the victims of brain damage. It's a therapy performed by the family and volunteers in the community. But it's not a therapy you're likely to hear about from most doctors. Here to tell us why is Dr. Margaret Cox of the Janeway Hospital. Dr. Cox, you see a lot of children with brain damage. Would you advise their parents to follow this program?
No, it wouldn't be my first choice, although I do see certain positive aspects, which you showed very well, I must say, in the film last night. but I'm not convinced that the patterning itself is effective in improving the development of these children, mainly because I've seen other children develop and progress in the same way that Emily has done through other methods.
What are these other methods?
Well, the usual methods are, after diagnosis, the child is referred to a multidisciplinary team, such as one would have at a rehabilitation center, where specialists familiar with these problems would see the child and the parents and assess the whole child, not just the movement abilities, but the language abilities, general development, the whole physical status. And then after a conference together would advise the parents on a course of treatment, often involving physiotherapy, the parents being the center of this treatment program. They would also put the parents in touch with parent support groups to encourage them to help with their child.
Is the feedback you're getting from parents in Newfoundland that this is enough? Or do you find that, for example, this family we highlighted last evening were frustrated with what was available in the province, so they turned to this?
Well, it's a great grief to parents when they have a child who is significantly handicapped. And it's very difficult to accept this. And I think we can all understand how parents feel that they want to do the utmost for their child. The difficulty I think we have in accepting a treatment such as you showed is that we have seen good results from somewhat simpler and less intensive methods, and we do see some disadvantage and possible difficulties that may arise if such a method as this were to be applied universally.
A child following a program such as you would recommend, how many hours a week would you think they would get of therapy and of attention?
Well, that would be up to the parents. The parents are the chief therapists for children with brain damage. The physiotherapist may see the child once a week, twice a week, or as often as she or he feels necessary. But the physiotherapist and the other therapists will mainly instruct the parents what to do with the child every day, and they may, of course, often get help from other family members or relatives.
It would seem that the main value of this program, though, is that the child is getting a great deal of stimulation and a great deal of, I guess, exercising and therapy from people outside the family.
Yes.
Surely this can do no harm.
Well, there is some fear that it can do harm in some respect. You were shown a lot of passive movement. We would tend in physiotherapy to emphasize more active movement to strengthen muscles. We would be very anxious to follow the normal, natural pattern of childhood development rather than putting the child into positions which seem unnatural, like hanging upside down, for instance. The rationale of that is to increase oxygen to the brain. Well, we're dealing here with a condition, cerebral palsy, for instance, where brain cells have died due to brain damage. Now, the problem here is that there's no cure for this condition, which is a hard thing for us to accept. We can't put new brain cells there, but we can train the child to use to the best advantage the healthy parts of the brain so that the handicap is minimal.
And to reach its fullest potential. That's possible.
Exactly, yes, what one tried to do.
Is not the medical community in Newfoundland divided on this? A letter was sent out by Dr. Afnan in Grand Falls, a physician, I guess, employed by the province, recommending this treatment to public health nurses and boards of education in central Newfoundland. Is not the medical community itself divided? There seem to be some members who are very enthusiastic.
There are some who would endorse it, but the predominant opinion locally and in the literature in general would tend to be reserved about recommending this because of the reasons that I've outlined.
Cynics, though, might say that the reason the medical community is against it is that it doesn't stand to benefit them financially. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't think there's any truth or basis to that. The child referred to a more orthodox form of therapy at the rehabilitation center, for instance, would go there at intervals, but still the main source of therapy would be the parents. The child might only be seen, at certain points.
Okay, there are several families using this program now. Would you recommend them to stop?
Well, I can't generalize. You see, one of the difficulties in accepting this program is that it offers a one type of program to all children. Now, there are many kinds of brain damage and many kinds of cerebral palsy. The child in the film seemed to me to be rather what we call hypotonic or limp, and she complied very well to the movement she was put through. But most cerebral palsy children are spastic or stiff. It might be very hurtful to them to be put through a routine such as this. In other words, you must have an individual program tailored to the individual needs of each child.
Would you recommend parents to stop if they are doing patterning now with their children?
I would recommend that they discuss what they are doing with other people who have seen their children and get other opinions on it.
All right, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Coming up, Transportation Minister Ron Dahl responds